It's episode 68 of Beyond the Track. Thanks for tuning in. Head over to YouTube or go to supercrosslive.com. You can catch the 67 episodes that came before this one. Mike, you're the big 6'8".
Missed it by one.
Hey, your backdrop is beautiful, like mine.
Yeah,
got
no,
my
this
tree,
is
are you in jail?
Yeah, no, this is like a help. This is a cry for help. I'm in Russia. I'm deep down in the Russian basement. Yeah, this is a big cry for help. Please, everyone.
All right. Well, this will come out, and then everybody can go and find you. We'll send a search party. Hey, it's gonna be fun. Can't wait to talk to you. First thing before we get started, I but remembered that the tickets are all on sale for Supercross for 2022. Go to supercrosslive.com. There's a code which is 2021CW for Cyber Week to get some discounted tickets because, Mike, they're gonna fill up this year. All right, it needs to get loud again. It's been too quiet for the last year and a half. It's going to be loud in 2022. So if fans want to get their tickets, get them now. But dude, are you pumped for the fans back? Like, dude, you know how it feels down there, right? How different it is. It's just
it's insane.
It's there's a feeling to it, and we need it back. I think Anaheim 1 is going to be psycho.
Dude, I was talking to my wife about that. I can't wait for Anaheim 1. It's like being someone that was down on the floor at Salt Lake for the 7 rounds. Hearing the national anthem being sung, and there's nothing. I mean, it was a weird deal, but like amazing that we got those races in, and like props to everybody that made that happen. But I mean, that was funky. Like that was it was weird.
Yeah, because think about it. Like you've got these $1 million athletes and these multi-million-dollar teams. There's so much at stake, and it's all in the building. And then there's like this weird, like eerie, empty. Like it didn't feel as big as we know it is. But it was all impactful. It mattered, but it didn't feel like that. And now we're going to go back to Anaheim where, I mean, I have a feeling they're going to start screaming from the opening ceremonies and might not stop because everyone's just so pumped to be back. So, yeah, it's countdown. Let's go.
I can't wait. It's been a minute.
Hey, it has. So I want to get into a lot of different things with you, but I want to start in a weird part of the calendar. And this is going to be a little bit different than I've done in the past. Take me back to your very first Supercross that you can remember working at. I don't know your history for that. If you've been whatever. I want the first one that you worked at, what the experience was like at the first one.
Yeah. Before I start, thanks for having me on, man. I'm stoked. Appreciate it.
No problem.
This is a kind of a funny deal. I've been shooting for quite a while, but I gravitated towards shooting Supercross and motocross because I grew up doing it, but I was removed from it for a while. So I moved to California from Pennsylvania, and I'm like, dude, I'm in California. I should go to Anaheim, right? Like, so I went as a fan, like just bought a ticket, but I never went to my seat. And I just took some photos in the pits. And then I had a little blog back in the day, like just for my photo, like total photo noob thing. Like nobody even does that anymore because they have Instagram. But I basically like, on a whim, like uploaded all of my stuff to my blog, and it was like I called it Fanaheim 1 because it was like I'm just some dork, But I got some really cool stuff. I was stoked because I was just like stoked to be there, Like I literally drove down from NorCal to Anaheim just by myself, stayed with some friends in San Diego. Like it was a fun trip. Like so cruised the race, like saw some friends there. But anyways, I had sent that link to like literally anyone, like any media outlet, right? Like Racer X. Like at the time though, there was a site called Insider MX that Austin White ran, and I'm sure you know it. And people nowadays, it's been a little bit removed, but I just sent my link to a couple of people, like, hey, check it out. Like just innocent, like, hey, if you ever need help, like for sure, thinking no one's gonna give a care, right? And then like Austin emails me back like pretty quick. He's like, hey man, like really cool stuff. Like, I don't know what he exactly said, but he's like, hey, do you want to come to San Diego? And I'm like, whoa, that's like, whatever. So that was my first race, and he got me a press credential. So like, I literally went from like shooting as a fan to like, right. But the funny part is Feld used to kind of like back in the day, I think it was more of a looser setup. So like one of my jobs and one of the main things I went for was to shoot the celebrities at San Diego, or it was at Dodger Stadium.
Yep. I remember that
one. I might have to fact check this whole thing, but it's like pretty foggy this time.
So this might be all inaccurate.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate, like within like a couple percent. So, but anyways, like, so I find myself like, not only I get to go to the race now, and this mad props to Austin, because like I'm still friends with him today, but like literally without that email response from him, like I don't know if I'd be doing this now. You know what I mean? So it's
One
like,
and done. That could have been one and done and whatever.
yeah. So it's like, and anyway, so I go down and they're like, my main thing that he needed, and he used to help Feld out with some photos and stuff. So he's like, hey, like they need some photos of their celebrities that'll be on hand. And they're like, you can head to the club suite. Like, so I'm like, dude, that's sick. Like box suite. Like I never been to a box suite. So I talked to somebody, and Denny was Sean Brennan then was Denny Hartwig. He's like a pretty sort of intimidating dude, super nice, but like, I don't know. I was like, hey, like, can I go see the space? Like, so I can shoot the photo, like see what it looks like. And he's like, oh yeah, like head up there. Like this Nathan Kress is there. And he's like, he is one of the celebrities, but I have no idea who this dude is. So I thought he was just someone who worked at Feld. So I go to this box suite, and anyways, like I'm like, hey, do you think I can shoot some photos? I just want to like test out the lighting, you know, like because I'm picturing everyone to funnel in. And he's like total celebrity kid. Like he was on iCarly, like Nickelodeon thing.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. So I'm talking to one of like the celebrities or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, man, totally. Like, but my whole thing at the first Supercross was like shooting these like celebrities, like who was it? Mark Paul Gosselaar was one of them. And then like guys, I don't know, it was like a random collection of people. But I
Pink?
shot a bunch of photos.
Was Pink there?
She wasn't in the booth. No, I mean, she might have been there, but this was like, honestly, it was the most random selection of people, but I was like shooting them as they're hanging out and like, look at me go. But that, then when that was done, I like headed down to the floor, and I remember like I had shot a little bit of practice, I think, but I like walked on the floor with the celebrities, like, cause they were able to go check it out. And I'm like with them, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, cause it's nuts when the first time you get to see it, the Supercross floor. So anyways, I kind
of different
like
look, right? It was such a different look. And I know the fans, there's those tours that, you know, the experience that fans get, but it is night and day how much different that track and that building looks when you're looking down on it versus when you're there looking up, right? It doesn't even, different feel.
It's crazy. And I shot like, and mind you, like, I'm going to throw this out there. Like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like, you know what I mean? I probably showed promise, you know, like there's a reason why I was there, but like, I had no business being out there. Like, and I was probably like a fish out of water, but it was crazy, that whole experience. And like, I basically took an opportunity from Austin, and he sort of just needed help, and I ran with it, and anything he needed from that point on, like, I'm like, dude, let me know what you need. And I learned how to work on a website. Like, again, credit to him, because it was fun. Like, we had a lot of fun with that site, and it steamrolled into a bunch more work for them. But I will remember that. I can't remember what year it was, but like some cool stuff, you know, like.
Yeah, that's rad. It's always, that first one is always weird too, because you don't know everybody yet. You don't know the routine. You're I mean, like you said, you're kind of in the dark, just going for it. And then it irons itself out over time, and you're like, then you become a vet, and now you know exactly what you're looking for, what to do, when to do it. But I have to imagine that first one, you were just kind of like.
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember, and this wasn't my first one, but it really hit me. Like, I was like, damn, like Chad Reed won. He was on a Honda, and I think I don't know if it was San Diego, you might know, but it was an awesome like race for him. But he came off the finish line, and he was rolling sort of towards me, and on the floor, I could just hear him like, wow, like he was screaming. And I'm like, dude, that's so cool. Like, you don't hear that unless you're there, you know, like fans even probably may not have heard it. So like that kind of thing drives me, because like we're here as photographers or videographers, we're capturing these people, like the highlights of these people's careers, or on the other side, the lower, you know, the low moments, but those make up the high moments even higher. So anyways, it's an honor to see those things up close.
It's crazy, right? I mean, I'll just throw this in. When Adam Cincerillo crashed at Vegas, when he had that title wrapped up, I mean, he was in position to wrap it up. That was one of those weird moments for me where like I'll always remember it, because Bondo in my ear is like, you got to go interview Adam. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And he's like, Daniel, get over there. And I'm like, I don't want to. I know he's upset. And I walked over there as slow as possible, hoping that he was already in the rental car. I was hoping he was gone.
I know, you're like, we just missed him.
Yeah, and I get there, and dude, I walk up, and he's got his head down, he's crying, he's got his family around him, and I remember Nick Way being like, "Adam, be a man, get up and do this," and I'm like, "Whoa!" And Adam popped up, dude, wiped his tears, and poured it out. And I that was one of those moments for me because I'm a former racer, so I know what highs and lows feel like, but I've never felt a low like that before. And to be there and interview him and like look in his eyes, like that was weird for me. So I would imagine for you, those early experiences were like that too. When you see Chad Reed explode like that, like that's some real life emotion with a lot behind it. And to see it like a couple of feet away, it's different than seeing it on camera. It's a weird, there's a realism to it, right?
Yeah, you humanizes them, and I've never been the person. Back to Adam, props to him because that was like all time interviews right there. Of like
he crushed it too.
Oh, it was insane.
He crushed
like,
it.
I remember exactly like everyone probably watching was like, wow, that's mature. Like you never would have thought he would have given that interview, basically.
Well, but nobody knew that Nick Way said, "Be a man, get up and do the interview." And it was like a dad. He get up, be a man, do it. And so
that's right.
Those are the little behind the curtain things that people, they're like, "Oh, Adam gave a great interview." Well, he may not have if Nick didn't make him. So.
I know, and that's a big testament to who you keep in your corner, right? Like,
yeah,
Adam has him in his corner. So, but good people. But yeah,
no
I think
question.
I always feel honored to have that closeness to these guys, and I don't put anybody on any type of pedestal, really. Like, everybody's human, and yeah, you can say that, but when you get to see somebody that's really good at something, right? Like these guys are really good at what they do in their life work. You're watching their life's work. I respect that so much, and I think that's pretty cool to have the chance to be somebody that's there capturing it, but also with the respect to them and making sure that we're keeping them comfortable too. I mean, you're in their world. Like same with your job. It's a weird balance, like you said.
It is, and you learn the line over time, and you learn exactly where to sit. And then if you find the line, you end up having a long career. Which again, you're regular. That's because you understand the balance between needing to do your job, but also respecting boundaries. It's a fine line, but I think the good ones figured out. So, before we get into your story a little bit more, what was it like for you to be there and have some of those relationships kind of flourish and build some friendships with these athletes? Because at first, right, these are like the stars. But then all of a sudden, like little conversation, it's a little bit, and then the next thing you know is they become friends. It's like a big fraternity for a lot of us. So what was it like just throughout the years to kind of see that change and go from a guy who's shooting celebrities up in the clubhouse to now having friendships with these guys that are the stars of the sport that we love?
It's cool you say it like that because it is true. You're such an outsider, and to anyone watching that, I mean, let's face it, the people that want to watch this, they're probably going to be photo nerds and video nerds. Like, what's that guy have to say, right? Like racers there. So, but it doesn't take that much to be, with a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, to be. I used to watch everyone from the outside, right? And I'd be like, whoa, I want to do what that guy does, right? And then you're, like you said, now I have relationships with these guys, and they're friends. Some of these guys I consider good friends, and it was really cool over the years to have like certain racers. And it just comes with being normal, like that's the thing. It's cool to be, it takes a lot of, nobody wants the guy that just, yo, bro, let's be best buddies, like, camp, it's like, but it's like, you find your circle of people that you kind of click with that have the same interests, and it's cool, and again, it humanizes these guys that some people, they see a guy like Eli Tomac, like, oh, dude, that guy's insane. And he's just like you or me. He's just really good at riding a dirt bike.
Yeah.
But it's cool
crazy
to
good
see
dirt biker, but he's just a person. Like, it's hard though, because I'm the same way, dude. I am like with these guys on the floor. They're like my buddies. I can walk up and say whatever I want to them comfortably. You send me to an NFL game or like a rock concert, I won't even be able to talk to the stars because I'm so like there's just a gap. There's a gap in reality where we end up in Supercross over a time, the gap shrinks, and we're like, we're living with these moments with them, and it's it's cool.
It's a traveling family, really. Like it really is, and it's like everybody's in the same place. They're on the same flights. You see everybody. You're in you might sit next to somebody waiting for your flight that just had the best race or maybe the worst race. And I've had some of the coolest conversations just out of circumstance. So it's cool. And like I said, like I really value all the athletes that I get to work with. And like I've done editorial jobs and like work at Transworld, and now I'm doing a line. But every job I've done, I really appreciate and value the athletes for giving me the time and realizing that my job is just, we're all of our jobs are important, and it's a cool deal when everybody works together.
One last story before we get in, because I'm going to start with your intro into the sport and into photography and into your whole world. But Jenny Taft, when I was just starting to do TV, she was like at the end with Supercross, and she was a Fox employee. So when the relationship split, we went to NBC, she was Fox, so she was gone. And I remember that last year asking her, because she's like, does World Cup and college football. She's like big time. And I'm like, and I said this one time, like, why are you still doing Supercross? Like, I mean, I know this is like, for us, this is the biggest thing in the world, but in the grand scale, like World Cup soccer, college football has its own audience. And she was like, it's the access and the athletes. That's what she said. That's why I'm here. I love this. She's like, I would stay for Supercross forever if I could, because she has access to the athletes and the way that they treat her and the way that they communicate with her. And she said, it's not like any other sport. She's like, you go to college football, these are college kids. They're not even pros, and they won't even give you the time of day. They're kind of arrogant. It's hard to peel back any info from them. She's like, I can walk right into the champions rig and sit down, and they will tell me what their family, or, like for Chad, him and his kids, that relationship is one thing that I think overlooked in the sport, is how rad our athletes are. They're accessible. They're cool. They treat everybody equal. I mean, Ricky Carmichael, he's one of my friends. He's the GOAT, and you would never know that if you talk to him. He's not this like unapproachable celebrity. He's a regular guy, and I think that speaks to our entire sport. The entire sport's that way. Our athletes, we're blessed that way. So anyways, all right, move on. Let's talk about you. So take me back to the beginning. You said you did you rode, your background was a little bit more in this sport growing up, but I know that it ventured off. So kind of take me through those early years before that very first race that you attended as a photographer.
Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania. So my dad is basically just moto dude. Like my wife bought him a dirt bike for his wedding present, like pretty cool. Like motorcycles are in my veins. So growing up, we were just like a dirt bike family in Pennsylvania. So moderately able to ride during the summer. I mean, it gets cold. So I lived like a very East Coast, probably like trails style. Like there's this place we rode in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, that was like the sketchiest. Like looking back now, I'm a dad now. So, and obviously we kept it safe, but like, dude, there's some crazy people there. Like my dad and my brother and we would just drive there and take about an hour. And I started on a 50, and then I got to sit, like work my way up. But I mean, basically this is just like a slate, like a shale pit style, like riding, like California people are probably like, I don't even know what that is, but we would just drive there, ride as a family, spend so much time together, like just riding, trail riding, cruising, like hill climbs. And then we got into like hare scrambles and racing, like District 6, like English Town, Sleepy Hollow, Hurricane Hills. And I was like terrible. Like, I'll just throw that out there. I mean, I never had a future on a dirt bike. Like, let's be real. And I would be like, I would run like the 100 kit in my 80, like, and no one's protesting me, dude. I'm not showing any sort of talent. Like, but I had a sick setup though. I thought, like I probably mimicked like RC a little bit, like try to look cool, but I was not good. So my whole like youth, like starting at age 8, I got a Honda Z50. And on that note, I just found,
like what's like the big wheeled Z?
Big wheel, yeah. And my neighbor down the street had one, and they were just selling it. And my dad just happened to get it, and it was like an 80, something like an 85, like old style, big red tank. And on that note, I just found one right before Thanksgiving, and I messaged the guy, like, I'm like, dude, I'm buying this thing. Like, I want one. And it sold before I got to it. But that was my youth. And then my dad rode like KX 250. Like we're like a East Coast core moto family. And then we go watch Supercross here and there. We go to like Unadilla. But yeah, so growing up, and then it was expensive. And my family, like we always had to buy our own bikes, sort of. Like my dad would help us out. But it came to a point where my brother went to college. My dad was kind of like, it sort of fell apart. Like we stopped. I got to the age where, you know what I mean? Like probably any family that's not like diehard into it goes through.
Slowly, so just kind of slowly goes away and becomes less part of your life.
Yeah, less part of my life. And at the same time, I started skateboarding, and I'm like, okay, my neighbors are skating. I can skate in my driveway. It's $125 for a board. Like, I'm like, sign me up for this. So that kind of consumed my life, starting at age 12. And then I like stepped a little bit away from moto. I loved it still, like still a fan, but just like didn't really ride for a while. And then got reintroduced to it when my brother started riding again. And then I bought a bike, or I bought his old bike. So it's kind of weird. Like, I rode as a kid, my dad rode, he stopped, I stopped, kind of just, then we regrouped, my brother rode again. It's like, you know how it is, like.
Yeah. Nice.
So
it comes back into play. But how serious were you with the skateboarding? I mean, did that consume you? Did that become like a thing, or was it just kind of the replacement for dirt bikes?
Yeah, I think my mindset, like certain people, like whenever I get into something, I get like really into it. So I'm a very like hyper ADD kid. So that's why photography, when I started, basically I picked up skating and I'm like, dude, this is so fun. And it's all I wanted to do. And through that, I was able to do it all the time. In my driveway, we had a quarter pipe, and like my neighbor hated me because I was just making noise late at night. And so, but through that, like, I think skateboarding is cool in a lot of ways, because it's a really artistic culture and really unique, and like kind of welcome, come one, come all vibe. And it introduces you to a lot of like interesting things. So through that, I had magazines and I would study them, and I always loved the photos. Like, I was like, dude, this is so, I would just study everything. And then I realized sort of on a trip that I was like, dude, I need to get a camera. So I bought a point and shoot camera. And so skateboarding was like, I was serious about it, but it would be like relative to I wasn't like a championship moto caliper dude. Like, I met some pro skateboarders and I'm like, okay, that dude's a pro. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. Like, let's just be real. I'm always realistic about it. But I was able to have like just flow sponsorships of like, I get shoes, boards, like all my friends and I, like, we made a bunch of videos and traveled, went to Spain and did a bunch of stuff, like traveled to Europe, and basically lived like skate lifestyle for a long time. And all through that, I went to school, and I kind of like, I didn't go all in on it. Like, I'm going to be a pro, like I just loved it, and I still skate. Like, so I don't know if that explains it enough.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess my question would be, when was the move to California? I mean, I know people, Dave Ginolfi is one of my really good friends, and I know he's an East Coast guy, not in Pennsylvania, but in that area, did a lot of stuff in that area. And now he's in Salt Lake City. And even for him, this is in his, older years. It was like pretty dramatic to make a move out of an area where you're comfortable, where you've lived, to somewhere that's nothing like where you're from. So was there anything in between, or did you come to just come to Cali? I mean, how'd that move happen?
Yeah, my story's crazy. Like, when you just made me think of it, like, I didn't go to California for motocross at all. In fact, like, some of my friends, a friend of a friend needed to sublet his apartment, and he lived in Oakland of all places. And every motocross person hears the word Oakland, they're like, yeah, I'm good. Like, it's probably like, I'm always the person that's like, dude, come with me, I'll show you Oakland. It's actually pretty rad. Like, Oakland's a cool city.
Not right now, it's not. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, there's times you want to go, I guess. But
I'm an hour and a half from Oakland, and Oakland is a very rad city, but it's having a
you're NorCal. See, I don't know you that well, but I know enough about you. But I'm like, I see you're at Hangtown and stuff. But so I moved to California, NorCal specific, because my friends were there, and I was just at a point in Pennsylvania where I'm like, dude, I need to just uproot and go. Like, why not, right?
So you went to
I
Oakland.
get there. Yeah, well, by circumstance, and we actually lived in Berkeley, which is like just
Yep, I was born in Berkeley. That's where I was born.
That's crazy. It's actually a crazy place. Like, Berkeley is so weird and like
rad town, dude. Way awesome. Rad. I've gone to some Cal Berkeley football games up there.
Oh yeah,
dude, it's such a rad town.
Yeah, that place, it was so weird. So I moved there. Like, literally the first day I got there, I was at the skate park, slammed on my head and broke my collarbone. So my introduction to California was total broken collarbone. Like, still to this day have the bump. And then go to the hospital, get out. I got a ticket for my seatbelt right after that. I'm like, California wants me out of here. Like, but after that, it smoothed out. So I got a job, and I used to work on cars. So that's another thing about me. Like, I went to school for automotive stuff, worked on cars. I had a full career, like, going in that. Like, I was managing a Volvo shop in Oakland for a little bit. Like, and anyway, so the photography thing came in I always loved shooting, but through that Northern California time, that was when I'm like, dude, I'm in California. I need to see what this moto scene's all about. But you're
Yeah.
gonna love this story, especially because you're from NorCal, or you're in NorCal. So I'm like, I was like, I'll eventually buy a bike, but I didn't have any money. Especially, I broke my collarbone. Like, I depleted my savings. Like, I'm eating ramen noodles. Like, but I'm like, I'm not going back, man. I'm staying. And but eventually, I kind of like got on my feet. I get a camera. Like, I was into photography before I left, and I shot photos across the country. And shooting was like my passion, like hobbyist, right? And then, but I was buying like. I invested in it, like buy a camera, like get a lens, because it's like anything. If you're racing dirt bikes, you're like, dude, I'm gonna buy that next bike or whatever. Mm-hmm. So anyways, so I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go see what this California moto scene's about. So I go to Argyle, which you know what that place is, right? And there's a race going on, and no knocking Argyle, it's a rad spot, right? But I'm thinking like I'm in SoCal. Like, I don't know anything about this. So I go to Argyle on like a local race, right? And I'm like, this is gonna be so cool. Like, I'm picturing all these rippers, like, and it was a fine day. But I park my truck, and some dude. This is the weirdest first experience of moto in California. It's like a normal Sunday race. Get out the door. I got my camera in hand. I'm like, shoot some photos. Some guy runs right at me. And he's like, bees. And dude, it looked like Jumanji. There's a bee swarm coming at me, and I was like, what? And anyways, I ran and jumped back in my truck. A swarm of bees flies by, and I'm like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And you've probably ridden there a bunch. It's windy.
Million times. My kids ridden there a million times. Yeah, 50 mile an hour. The track's actually rad. Like, I love Argyle, but dude, the winds are brutal.
Oh yeah. So, but I go there like thinking I'm gonna be like seeing like SoCal, but I that's how out of touch I am with moto in California. I didn't even know like the scenes or whatever. So anyways, I shot a bunch of photos, but I sort of cut my teeth like shooting local tracks up there. And 408 MX, I'd go to a bunch. Mm-hmm. And like the dude Ralph that owned that place at the time, like I got a YZ250, I rode there a bunch. So anyways, got to know some locals, and it was fun. Like, that was my like practice spot for shooting, and go ride, shoot some photos. Anyways, but yeah, all the while I skated, but I don't know where I'm going with it. That's
all over the place is what I love. So dude, skating, moto, photography, traveling, work. I mean, dude, you remind me of me. Just like nothing makes sense ever. You're just doing everything.
And back to skating too. Like, I would have my friend Max shot photos, and he doesn't shoot that much now, but he was a really good photographer, and he shot with Nikon cameras, and that's still to this day why I shoot on Nikon, just probably because he had a Nikon, right? So. But he would shoot photos of me skating, like, and I was never like going to be like I said, anything special, but anytime you can get a photo or some video footage or release a part, like, your sponsors are happy or whatever, like, and it's relevancy. So, but I would have the eye, like, it kind of hit me one time, and I was like, oh dude, like, we should shoot a photo here. Like, and I had the vision of what the photo should be, but I was like the person in it, like, and I'm thinking like, I should be the one taking the photo. Like, I don't want to be in, like, I had the eye basically. So it's kind of a weird, like, I was always looking at how I could take a picture.
So instead of being on the receiving end, you were seeing things that the other side should be or could be seeing, and being like, man, this.
Yeah. He was like, oh dude, that'll be a cool photo. Like, and whatever, it's just the eye. And it was fun. Like, it was always fun going with him, because I knew he was going to take a good photo too. And that's another thing with these riders that I've gotten to work with. It's an honor to me to have anyone let me into their world, and with the trust or excitement, knowing that we're going to create something pretty cool, right? Like,
right.
So
well, it's a fun, especially fun that's earned over time, right? When you do good work, they respect you, and the next thing they know, they want to work with you because they know you're going to put out good stuff. So
and you make it easy and fun too, right? Like,
exactly. And there's different ways. Well, a lot of guys, I mean, it just depends on the time of year, right? Some of the riders are so focused on their training, the last thing they want to be doing is dealing with stuff like that. And then sometimes they just need a damn break, and they're like, let's go have some fun and like do some fun stuff. So got to get the right rider on the right day. Okay, so timeline wise, you get out here. Is that when the trip down south happened? That was from that area,
like,
or that time period?
At some point, I'm like, all right, I had friends in San Diego, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to Anaheim. Like, I was hyped. I was listening to Pulp MX. I'm like a fan. Like, I'm outsider for sure at this point. I'd listen to Pulp MX. Like, I'm read Racer X. Like, my dad always had Racer X subscriptions. And anyways, I kind of just like, I loved moto because I was an outsider of it. And skating, I was an insider of it in a way. Like, I was almost like, I wasn't burnt out on it, but you know how it is. If you do something for so long, like moto was so fresh, like I'm just like stoking on it. So when I went to the track too, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it's so different. So, but I shot skate photos too. Like that was another thing I used to do, like with my friends. But anyways, I don't know when I decided like, dude, I'm going to Anaheim. I'm only like 6 hours away, right? Like, how could I not?
Something hit and you're just like, let's roll. I mean, and that's crazy when you look back on life, right? How little weird decisions steer. I mean, you just steers course. And then like if you like you said, if Austin would have never responded, we wouldn't even be talking right now, which is crazy to look back on that decision. And somewhere along the line, you decided to go in the first place. It's weird how life works that way.
Right. Yeah. And after that like shooting a Supercross, that's what's so random. I did so much work to get to, like, it is not normal to just be on a Supercross floor. Like it almost shouldn't be okay. Cause like you should put in your work, I think. Like, and a lot of young people kind of approach me like, how can I do your job? And I'm like, I mean, shoot, takes a lot of work, but I spent so much time shooting amateur races and Mammoth. And I worked for so many different people on that level, like before and I actually looked at the pro level and I looked at everybody there and I'm like, I mean, there's a lot of people here. So where's my piece of this little pie? Like,
right.
So I actually found a path in amateurs more that I had, and I love amateur racing. I still do. But anyways, so through that, like I kind of just flowed my path like anyone would. But again, like it was nuts to go to a Supercross race and then literally be like, oh yeah, you want to come shoot one? Like, I'm like, what?
Crazy. Yeah, it might be a little harder in 2021, 2022.
Oh,
I don't think I don't think it's going to happen like that anymore.
Well, I always
good timing.
Yeah, and I tell everybody, like, I like to be an open book. Like any young Grom photographer or anybody, like, hit me up. I'll talk to you about my story or tell you what I suggest you to do. But the bottom line is it's a pretty niche sport to begin with. There's a lot of people that want to do it. So it's hard to be down there on the floor, like. So
do you think the move to amateur, covering the amateur stuff, do you think that was out of intrigue for amateur racing, or was it more access and the ability to really have less rules to be able to get in there and do what you want to do? Because even with Supercross, no matter what, I mean, there's places you can't go, there's things you can't do. The amateur racing, I feel like it would be a little bit looser, especially a few years back. So was it the access that maybe made that path open up, or did you have intrigue into amateur racing in general?
I mean, I was just like stoked to do something like that was the job, right? Like, can I write? Can I photojournalism? Like, I've always loved photos with captions. Like Thrasher Magazine's website would always have like anything like an article about a party or like a video premiere, and it'd be like a photo with a caption, right? And I always thought that was cool. So I would find it like, put me in, like, what do you need me to do? Like, let me go cover this event. Like, do you need me to write? I'll write a story. And I think it was being open-minded, and I liked working on cars, and like, that's cool. But I knew I had this passion that obviously like it was worth pursuing because it's what I do now. But I think it was more like trying to be smart about how can I do this, right? Like, and again, that's another point. I was willing to write stories. Anyone I met, like, I worked for Cycle News, I'd write text. I didn't even shoot the photos, So there's a lot of work that people do that goes into a career that may not be like the most glorious part, like the guy typing the article. That guy's job is super valuable. But a lot of people have done a lot of things that to get where they are that you never see, right? Like,
well, and I hear from a lot of the journalists too that there's the glorious part of the job, and then there's the dirty part of the job, which is writing those articles. And even the best that do it still to this day, it's hard sometimes to block out everything, lock in, and get it done. It's not all glamour. There's a hard part to it, and if you're willing to do it, probably opens up more doors for you if you're willing to get in there and grind out some of those harder positions, right?
Yeah, and like that amateur stuff I did, like, and like I went to Loretta's this year and we did some stuff for our clients, And I was like, dude, I love it. Like, I was so happy to be back, because that's the most grassroots core, like not necessarily Loretta's, but the amateur scene. I mean, it's your sun races. That's what it's all about. Like, I'm at the top level when I'm at Supercross, and that's where everyone wants to be, I guess, like, but I'm down with the dogs of I want to see the next crop, right? Like, I like seeing that. And that's how I've gotten to be, like, I worked with a lot of these guys that are pro now when they're amateurs. And that's goes to your point, like developing these relationships. I knew them when they were on 80s, right? Like, I used to shoot Jet Reynolds, will be here soon. I have photos of him on a Cobra, like launching tabletops at Mammoth. And he was just this little tiny kid who barely said a word. You knew he was going to be good, right? And now soon he'll be at Anaheim or whatever. He'll be at the main stage. But I now have shot him since he was whatever. I don't know how old. Like,
how weird is that? Because I'm going through the same thing with a very similar rider, Max Volan. He's a NorCal guy. Talon Volan was like a mentor to me. I always knew about, his little kid, Max. And I actually watched at the Oatfield, Jet Reynolds and Max Volan battling on 50s, 1 and 2.
It's
and then
so
who's sitting behind them about 10 seconds just chilling was Ryder D. Just a little like 6-year-old on a 50. When I see Ryder D now and I talk to him and his voice is all deep and he's insane on a 250.
Yeah.
I actually don't like the feeling. It makes me feel old, dude, because I watched him when he was 6. I watched Max Volan when he was 7, 8 years old on a 50 at Sac Raceway. And then I watched round 1 of the outdoors and he's leading it for half. And I'm just like, what the hell?
Well, that's another thing too. Like, showing like why our job, or you are a racer, so you're different than me. I was never with these guys, but like my time to spend with any of these guys, they're doing this from the time they're babies. Like, this is a life's work. You're watching a body of work that your entire life is on the line when the gate drops. So it's like, you want to be respectful of their space is very important on race day. And that's what it's cool. It's an honor to be with any of these guys. And yeah, they're humans, but I always consider that. I'm like, dude, like Chad Reed, like he just went and raced Bercy or Paris. Like, that's badass, dude. Like, he's been at it for a while. So
hey, he looked good too.
He did. The gear
he did look really
cool.
good.
Like,
quick question. Quick question. How many races does Chad do this year? Supercross. What do you think?
He's got some under his belt. Hey, on the note of Chad, like, I've had some cool experience with him, and through I've gotten to work with him here and there, and he was my first cover for Transworld, and that was like the next step in my story, is like shooting amateur stuff. And I shot for Verb Moto, and I got introduced to a bunch of people. I was working for Cycle News, and then a job at Transworld came, and that was like a big I had no business applying for this job, like I thought, but I got the photo. It was a photo editor of the magazine. So that was like my next big job. And through that, this will go back to Chad. He was my first cover shoot. And to me, like, dude, that's all time from the new generation. I hate to say this, but print's still awesome, and it's going to be awesome. Like, I hope it never goes away. But like, to me, dude, if you're shooting cover, like, that's the ultimate, like, for me. Like, so Transworld, I get the job. I'm like, eventually I'm sure Don will want me to shoot a cover, right? Like, that'll be cool. And it's Chad, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of gnarly. Like, he's not notoriously like gonna be the guy that's gonna be like, dude, let's do this cover shoot. Like,
well, he's cool now. He's cool now.
Oh no, he's super cool. So
it wasn't probably the easiest in the day.
Oh yeah, but it was cool because, like, and luckily I knew what I was doing. But it's like, it was when he got back to Yamaha, right? And that was what was weird with me with moto, because skateboarding covers happen out of whatever, like, what's the gnarliest thing that happened that month, right? Or what's the coolest photo? It's not really like a planned thing to where Transworld's like, hey, Mike, you're going to go shoot Chad Reed for a cover. So I'm like, talk about pressure, right? Like, for me. So I show up at the track, and it was after Anaheim won. So he's like notoriously a gnarly tester. So he knows we're shooting an article, and like, I know how to play the game. And like, I had met him before, but I didn't know him hardly at all. And he knew I was there to shoot a cover. But I'm like, hey, like, we kind of wanted to put you on the cover with we thought a knack would be cool. Like, always want to talk to the rider too. Like, what do you think about that? And then he's like, yeah, that'd be cool. Like, I think that like the finish line double will be good. So I'm like, all right, cool. But he like doesn't really like let me know what he's doing the whole like for a while during the day. So I have like lights. I'm kind of like waiting for him, like, but I'm ready at any moment, like with flashes for him to just like decide he's going to do his knack. And then boom, he like hits the jump like after his moto and he throws a knack. I'm like, like it's time, dude. I got to shoot this photo. Like, and the other guys are riding and I'm like super pressure on myself. Like, and so anyways, he does like 5 or 6 knacks, never says anything to me like during this deal. Like he knows I'm shooting it and then just rides back up to the truck. I'm like, hope I got it, dude. Like,
yeah,
like,
I was saying, because could you imagine being like, hey, Chad, can you go do a couple more? I didn't get what I needed. You're probably terrified of that. So
no. Well, he's like, how was it? Like, you get some good ones. I'm like, and I'm just like, oh yeah, for sure. Like I'm not going to be like, I don't know, man. Like, but in my head, I'm freaking out. But he was like, yeah, it's kind of sketchy to knack off that thing today. Like, I'm like, yeah, no worries. Like, so anyways, that was my first.
I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
I'm like, dude, yeah, we got it. But we did get a good shot. And like, that was a cover. And I'm like, it was the April month and that's my birthday month. And dude, to shoot the first cover with him, well, that's cool, dude. Like, and again, like I always admired him as a professional. He's so gnarly. Like he is a professional, like at what he does. And I think he's at a tier of this thing that not many people reach. So that was cool. And
legend.
But through that,
absolute
I've gotten
legend.
to know him. And
hey,
and
so
recently,
go ahead.
I have one more quick story that's really cool with him. I got to work with him like a handful of times, and then I got to know him like, what's up, dude? And James Stewart was at the what stadium? The Raymond James race, remember?
Yeah.
He was
Tampa.
like in the pits.
Tampa, round one.
No one had seen him for so long, right? And it was like,
time.
So I was just in the pits. I knew he was there, but like, what am I gonna do? Like track him down? Like, hey. So as a photographer, like that's important stuff, like to get that if you can. So I go into Chad's pits just by chance, and he's like, you missed it, bro. And I'm like, missed what? He's like, James was just here chatting. I'm like, come on. Like he was just busting my chops because like I didn't get the photo. And being me, like I know that's important. So I'm like, Chad, if I go talk to James's people and I can get him to come out of the bus, can you walk over so I can get a photo of you guys? He's like, yeah, dude, for sure.
Oh, that's
right.
Like,
all right. So I talked to his guy and he came out, and then I ended up shooting. They started talking and like I got a photo of them together. But it was so cool, dude, because I got some really great photos, like awesome stuff. And I was like, I walked away from that and I'm like, he just hooked me up. Like, so that was a huge
and no one
thing
had no one had seen James in so long. So that's one thing. Number two, talking to Chad of all people, because we know their relationship was what it was. So like, that's a pretty cool moment in the sport to not only see James, but see him with Chad. So that's huge.
Yeah. Huge. And they were talking because he did that, they were in between these motorhomes. No one was around, but people sort of became keen to what was happening, but they were just talking. So I actually got to hear them chatting, just BSing. And it was really cool. Like, and I took some photos and I kind of like out of respect, like, hey, that was awesome. You just did that, but I'm going to now remove myself. And now you guys BS, right? Like that's part of my job, like knowing when to bail. So
knowing, get what you got to get out of there. Yeah, that's how that respect we talked about. When you earn that, that's why you're going to always be welcome, because you're not. All right, well, I'm done. But what are you guys talking about? I'd like to sit in on this.
Let's talk about that one. Like I'm a ghost. Like I need to go.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Hey, so fill me in on what you're doing now with Align and just the whole conception behind Align, because there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot going on there, and I don't think everybody understands it. I don't understand the I guess the size and everyone who's involved in what you got going on. So can you take us through kind of Align and what everybody's doing there?
Yeah, that came out of basically circumstance in my end. Working at Transworld, I was there for like 4-ish years, and I loved it. Like really cool crew there. Like was doing, we did some cool stuff, and like huge part of my career was like cutting my teeth and really, really working there with all these athletes and getting to know them. And then that all crashed and burned 2019, I think, in January or something like that. Like, you know the story. I mean, Transworld's like, bam, they got bought.
Yeah.
And that company's like, yeah, we're good on motocross. Like, and we walked into this meeting and we all left that meeting without jobs. Like, gnarly, right? Like, stupid, like big business type of thing. And with that,
crazy too, because it didn't seem like they understood the impact that could have on the industry. Transworld was such a part of everything, and it was like to have some high ups just be like cut bait. It's like, what?
It's so out of touch. And like we
so
were
out
floating,
of touch.
We were like the stars in the building, because we're not the only magazine in the building. We were doing great. We were 12 issues. I mean, that alone was huge for being a print magazine that's circulating 12 issues. Like, if you work in print industry, which no one watching this probably knows, but it's not easy. Like, it's not, you know, everyone's on their phones, and those who are doing a good job of media have adapted. But anyways, that Transworld goes away. We're all bummed. And it's like, I had a 3-month-old kid, and I'm like, dude, this is gnarly. So I kind of like hit the reset button, did some work that year, got a lot of great jobs. Like, really quickly, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be fine. You know, like, I didn't know. And during that time, Simon Cudby had kind of like started working with Rich Shepherd, and they started working on clients together, like just on their own. And I wasn't really shooting. Like, when you work at Transworld, you're not going to every Supercross. You'll go to a bunch of races, but you're not like shooting every race, and it's totally different job. And so through that circumstance, I'm just like available to do, like, I'm like, whatever anyone wants me to do. Like, I like did a lot that year, like wrote a bunch of stories, like did like copywriting. I mean, I did stuff that no one would ever even know. Like, I even helped Red Bull develop that whole Robbie Madison and Tyler Bierman, like LA thing. I was like on the back end of that, like helping, like just weird, like, again, this goes back to just being able to be diverse, I think. And everyone who wants to be a photographer, a big tip I give them is to, like, don't single yourself into one lane, you know, like, be open-minded to do a lot of things. So, but
dang,
Simon and Rich were working together. They had a handful of clients, and I wasn't like all in on shooting Supercross races, but Rich was like, dude, I've known him forever. He's like the most like true photographer, in the sense where he wants to capture everything. Not everyone even knows him that well. He's just like fly on the wall, kills it at shooting photos. He's like one of the most solid humans I've ever met. And he was like, dude, you should come shoot Las Vegas with me. So we kind of like tag teamed these clients, and then we were like, dude, this would be fun. Like, why don't we just all join together here? And I'm like, shit, like, it's out of circumstance and timing and everything. So I kind of wanted to like start something that could grow legs, and like that was like sort of my input on it. So we all put our heads together, and through that we started a line, and we launched 2020. COVID, baby, like, heck of a year to start. So
hey, way to come out with a big old speed bump, kick things off.
Right, like weird. So it almost doesn't even feel like it'll be, you know, 2 years. It's been 2 years. This, you know, it's just weird. But I was basically available to become that race photo guy, which that was never like, I wasn't ever like, I want to go to every race, I want to shoot. Like, I loved it, but it wasn't like, I didn't grind towards that the whole time, because I always went on to take every opportunity, and I do other stuff outside of racing too, like commercial photo work and whatever. So, but through that we came up with this deal, and I take pride in quality, like assembling a group of people that are so passionate and like just want to do the best work and love it, you know? So that we started an Instagram, and I kind of do that and just do my best to push forward like the ultimate highest quality work you can do, right? And have ultimate pride, and just share what we see, you know?
I would imagine how that's obviously important in every industry, but in this one as well, when there's other people out there, like you said, cutting their teeth, trying to get known. I mean, you can't cut corners and be average anymore, right? Like, you guys are to the point now where it's elevated, where you got to crush it at all times, because you're competing with others that are pushing all the time.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's like, it's all mutual respect. It's like, everybody that's so into like any artist, you're just like, if you see any photo that anybody shot, you're like, dude, that's cool. Like, it's not even like, so it's really rad, like to be at that, to finally make it to the level. And like I said, when I started shooting to where I'm at now, like I learn every time I shoot. You're never like, oh, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
always room to improve, and there's always things you can work on, or it's a passion, right? It's just like, it's what we love. So, but through that, joining forces with Simon and Rich, I was able to bring like some of my own clients, basically people that are like, oh, you're shooting, it's basically just combining powers and also making lighter work with more people. Because
Right.
you've talked to Simon, it's so gnarly. Like he did it
Yeah.
for years, and again, going back to like the past, I messaged Simon as like a Grom, sort of like, hey, dude, I love your photos, like just innocent, right? But then we became buddies, and he went to Facebook, messaged me, and that popped up like your old ones. And he was like, dude, that's kind of funny. And I was like, yeah, no,
Wow.
embarrassing. But so now we work together.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's forget about what I said. It's cool that I reached out, but let's.
Yeah. Well,
let's
even
delete it.
cooler. So we've, and through what we're doing, we have a lot of great clients, and like our goal is to just like not only do the best work, but make it easy for everybody we work for, and have fun, right? Like, and just be there for whatever we need. So, but through that, we started working with Cole Beach, and he actually messaged me, sort of like how I messaged Simon. It's just a flow of a cycle of like whatever. So that's why I always say, like, never think that anything is impossible, because we're all just here doing what we're doing, right? Like,
It's crazy too how a lot goes back to the Verb guys and the Verb group. There's so many that have come through that channel, and it's like, Wes, man. I mean, it's just funny that you and so many others have ran through Verb at some point, and that's like a fraternity in itself.
Oh, it's insane. Like, and Wes is such a good dude, and all the people that are involved there, like, I don't know, it's a smaller world than everybody thinks, and that's what that, and especially within the media, like, it's a pretty cool deal, like to be able to do what you love. And yeah, there's a lot of work. Our job is freaking gnarly. Like, everyone thinks we're just like, the average outsider might just think I'm down there with my camera just high-fiving all the, yeah, dude, what's up? But it's like, no, we're like working till 1 a.m. after the race is over, while everybody else is kicking it at the bar or like having fun. Like, we're just working at our computers. So it's like, you ever need to reach us, we'll be at our computers.
Yeah, and you guys, the serious stuff starts from the gate with a checkered flag. That's when you guys really got to lock in. I know. I mean, that's part of the game. So last question for you before we, start locking in on Anaheim 1. What happens with you from now until then? What does the workload look like? How much creativity and kind of like decision making do you have as far as where you want to go? Like, just what is the off season like, especially like in the last month and a half with photo shoots and all the different things? Riders they're doing their laps, but they're also being a little bit more playful. I've noticed guys are putting a lot more videos out. So what's this last like month and a half look like before we go racing?
Man, it's funny. Like, when you go to everything, this is the time where you can breathe. I'm like, oh, like November, this is the first month that I can remember that I actually purposely I didn't schedule a single photo shoot this month. I actually and I have work to do on the back end, but I'm on the East Coast now with my family, and I have 2 kids. I had a daughter in June. So, growing family, this is the time of year where you can be busy if you want to go create content with people. I do different things outside of the races, like I said. So this year specific, I took on a lot of extra work midweek. And when it came time to, once that like September, October time, once that cleaned up, I'm like, I'm going to go over here and just kind of
take a breath.
Low. Like, yeah, but I will be flying to California here, like in a week or so, for the media sessions. Because I've shot for this will be like the 4th year, working with Feld, shooting all the portraits. So that's kind of, to me, like, all right, we're getting into it, and I'll be in California for a bit, shoot some intros, and team shoots come up now this time of year for that. So real soon, December, it really starts to feel like that time, and I think we'll see in Anaheim, like who did all their homework, right? And nowadays everybody does their homework. It's like,
that's the hard part. They're all good now and they're all prepared and they're all ready. And it's funny you mentioned the media days. So Supercross starts feeling real to me when you start getting emails for that. So I just got email for my hotel confirmation for media days. So I'll see you down there. I'm going to be down there working with everybody. But that's when it's like, it gets real when all of a sudden you look at an email and there's a reservation in your name. You're like, oh boy, here we go. It's really on now. So
it almost feels like I'll have dreams. Like I actually have dreams where I like missed practice and I'm like that's when I know I'm close, when I'm having like dreams about the race and I'm like blowing it and I wake up and I'm like, oh man, like, but it is funny. Like it feels sort of like a tidal wave's coming and we all love it, but it's like our jobs are like they're different, but one and the same. Like it's like so intense. And then once it's done, like once we upload all of our photos and they're all done, I feel like it's like twiddle your thumbs and just wait for the next week. It's all done. It's weird.
It's either full impact or empty. I don't ever feel like I'm in the middle in this sport. You're either all in or you're not. So, and that can be in the week, right? You could have a crazy Saturday and a Sunday, and then all of a sudden you could have possibly an empty Monday or an empty Thursday. It's very, very on or off. And like I said, it's been off for me for a long time.
Yeah, I'm starting to go stir crazy because like, again, we came to the East Coast and both of our families are here. So we just been spending some off time here and like, it's awesome. But I'm like finding myself going stir crazy. I'm like, get me to a track or something like, and soon I'll be wishing I was doing nothing. Right. So it's a balance of like your brain. But again, like I always like to see everybody at like the media sessions or the first time you see everybody. And I don't know, it's cool. Like some people you're like, dude, that guy's not like, some people are looking like fighters, you know? And then I always remember it was James and somebody at like a press conference. And I remember like they shook hands and he was like, see him shake my hand there? He was kind of feeling me out. Like he was talking about like how they're sizing each other up. Like, I just thought that was funny. Like, and the riders are like that too, right? Like they're probably all like, what's he look like? You know, like.
And I guarantee you they are like I was. I was so intimidated if my competition had really sick gear. Like if they had a new look, I'd be like, oh no.
Like
crap. New gear makes you faster. It's just a known thing, dude. New gear makes you faster. So I would see my competition with some new gear and I'm like, oh crap. So
like,
media days will be like that because everyone's doing all their portraits and all that. So you're going to see all the new gear kits come in. Everyone's looking sick and tight. And did you know there's a little flexing going on?
Oh, and you know who's feeling themselves too. You know, you can tell the people that are like swag, they're like, they have the confidence. You're like, let's see how it works, you know? But I love it. Like it's a whole cool thing you feel really honored to be a part of it. And like, I'm so lucky to do this stuff, you know? And I look around often and I'm like, how did I end up here? You know? And it's not to be taken for granted, you know?
Yeah. And that's
I don't
why
think anybody that's there should take anything for granted.
And that's why if you're in there, grind it out and keep working hard. Because the minute you lay off the throttle, someone wants your job. So, dude,
and to that point, if you're not feeling it, give somebody else that job, right? Like, get out, exactly. Because we want to be surrounded by people that love this stuff, right?
You got it. I mean, that's 100% truth. And you can tell when someone's lost their love. So I know you're still in the middle of it. You're peaking at full love. So am I. So
yeah, man,
bro, great conversation. And I'll see you next week. I didn't know you. I didn't know the details other than my hotel reservation, but I'll see you.
Yeah,
see you
it
next
should
Monday.
be a good time. Yeah. Thanks for the time, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, bro. Later.
Appreciate it. Take care.